game. Baylor and Iowa State will be a close game. It just all depends on Shapen.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that he's been very hit or miss through these first few games. That's not all on him, obviously, but he hasn't been just throw him in there and he's reeling off, 17 consecutive completions in the Big 12 title game, like that guy that everybody was wowed by several months back, and I guess that was December. That's not how it's transitioned into this season. He was hurt right after that, or hurt in that game, and we didn't see him until spring ball and eventually him winning the job. And since he's taken over, he's shown some good. I don't know, guys. I mean, you tell me. Like, he's shown some good things. He's shown some bad things. He's been just kind of okay to me. I mean, I know that there's those that want to break it down under a microscope and will tell you like why this velocity makes him this great, or this type of pass is what separates him from these guys. And that's all well and good, but as far as like the decision making and the obvious and the what you see, I feel like it's been okay to this point, and I'm not convinced that he's just going to lead them to a title, this year or in the immediate future.
If this would have been the Baylor offense that I would have seen going forward, I would have thought Gary Bohannon was still the quarterback.
Yep.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that because and they maybe against Brigham Young with Gary there, it was more of a game for him to be able to use his running ability, even though Shapen is very athletic and can run, and he showed that against Texas State on the bootleg. That was absolutely a kick in the butt. They needed that. But I was expecting not a team that was going to throw for 300 yards, but I was expecting a team that was going to air it out. And that's probably not Blake Shapen's fault or anyone else. It's my fault. Because I forgot about also the fact that they have young receivers that are a part of this. And the offensive line has not mauled people, although they are still very, very talented. I thought they would be winging it around a lot more than they have been, and I have not seen that.
I mean, I don't know that I was expecting them to be Oklahoma's, Jeff Levy offense where, they're flying around like the old Baylor football days. But I did expect them to be able to get up and down a little bit easier than has been the case. I feel like they've kind of been – I searched for a phrase, and I guess the phrase I eventually came back to is like sometimes it's like watching pulling teeth. It's kind of like it's hard to get just the next first down marker and the next first down marker. And like, look, we've seen really pedestrian Baylor offenses. This is not what we saw at times with Charlie Brewer, early in Matt Rule's tenure, or anything like that. Like
or
that
in
was
2020
or 2020. Like that was really pulling teeth. Like that was legitimately pulling teeth. This is not that. And I think the downfield pass game, we've seen some signs of optimism. But yeah, it's just not been super smooth, and they've had to figure some things out. And I think it doesn't help when Shapen's really in the fire. He's got young, inexperienced wide receivers. Last week he doesn't have his trusty target in Ben Sims or even Monterey Baldwin for that matter. And the offensive line's not been as good as advertised.
Well, I mean,
so,
Khalil Keith's been
Pro
out.
Football Focus did have this out that showed them as the third highest ranked offensive line through the first 3 weeks of the season. Now, they're usually pretty good at what they do. And that surprised me when I saw that.
I think that, and I don't know this the same way that like super X and O's guys know this, but I know Pro Football Focus is not totally accurate in every graphic that you read. Like there, I don't think it's as simple as just the numbers always indicate. I think there's some kind of fuzzy results that pop up from time to time. Not to disparage the whole site, but I don't think that's true to word as it appears.
If it was always right, then there would be no other site that would do it.
They had the controversy last year with Trayvon Diggs.
Just some of the number. Yeah, it's not an exact science, so to speak. But yeah, I mean there's a lot of optimism that was built up for this O-line to just be dominant road grader types, and they didn't have Khalil Keith, and they still don't, and that certainly hasn't helped. But I don't think that the guys who were supposed to come back with a nasty edge really came back with a nasty edge, and I think that that's why you're in week 4 and you're talking about getting to the point where you probably should have been in week 1. And
I think
is
what Dave Aranda said to me last week. Remember after the Brigham Young game that he did not see that little edge, so to speak.
So to wrap it up, yeah, I think that it's a combination of things for the Baylor offense. And, yeah, Blake Shapen's certainly part of that.
Texas Boyle Shapen's an upgrade over Bohannon, but he kind of struggling. Yeah, you're right about that. From Darling Dead, Shapen was lights out with a very experienced wide receiving core. Yeah, last year in that Oklahoma State game, he was phenomenal. And he was good when he came in against Kansas State on the road when Bohannon pulled and probably, I guess, more than that, tore his hamstring as well. But Aranda, as Texas Boyle said, knows more than us. He does. So does Jeff Grimes. So does Sean Bell. And So we'll find out
I'm-
the game on the road in Ames.
I'm not saying he shouldn't be the starter or anything.
No one's saying
I'm just,
that,
no, I think that this weekend's going to say a lot, though. And I don't want to make it out like every week's a measuring stick, but it kind of is now that you're entering Big 12 play, and the fact that there's no real gimmies in the Big 12, it appears at least right now. And certainly Baylor's not so dominant that you would give them any gimmies right now. So, yeah, I still have full confidence in Shapen. I don't think it's been quite what the most optimistic views would have wanted to have seen at this point. You'd probably want to see a little more firepower, and it's been a process that's been kind of slow. But I think this weekend we'll know a lot coming out of this game about what to think about the offense.
At least we have, this is we as in Darling Deb saying this, we have an incredible defense that gives our offense a little extra time. One of the other things, Power's a fantastic punter. The other special teams, you have a punt run back for a touchdown by Gavin Holmes. Kick coverage has been okay. The kicking game, obviously Rauschenberg's amazing. Almost every single kick goes in the end zone. And when it doesn't, you're kind of surprised by that. The kicking game as far as special teams, as far as extra points and field goals, it last year it kind of stabilized it. Hankins came in, did a great job, and now they're bouncing back and forth with that. That always is a little bit of I guess a little bit of heartburn when you're not sure exactly who your kicker might be. And so there a lot of different results and a lot of different comments. And Cameron said Baylor screwed the pooch when they lost to Brigham Young. You hope they get better from that game, and we didn't see that in the first half against Texas State. They play like they did in the first half against Texas State and Ames, they'll be down 10, 14 points at halftime.
Yeah.
They screw the pooch if you're talking about like going undefeated, but outside of that, everything's still in play. But it's going to be tough.
There's only going to be a couple teams that do that anyway. So.
Yeah.
Agree Shapen has from 254. Agree Shapen has been average at best, but last year he was throwing to veteran receivers. I think Shapen's success this year will be closely correlated to the development of the young receivers. I also think we need to move the pocket and have him throw more on the run.
I do think that the running game for whoever Baylor's quarterback is, whether it was Bohannon when he did it, or when he had the reins, or Shapen now, like that's going to be key, is getting your quarterback out, being able to run. And so, yeah, that's Shapen now, and it's going to be up to him. And it's not as much of a guarantee as when you had big, strong Gary Bohannon. Shapen's not built that way. And so I think everybody kind of holds their breath a little bit when he gets out into the open field, especially given how many hits he seems to take when he does run with the football. But yeah, I think the quarterback run game is something that I wouldn't be surprised to see a good bit of this weekend, just to kind of change things up a little bit, or just add on to maybe some of what we've seen so far. But there's signs to like. I mean, get Ben Sims back healthy. Drake Dabney and Sims make a great tight end combo. They're getting their other young tight ends involved as well, and had to last week. And the wide receivers, it's just a slow process. But hey, if somebody wants to be a wide receiver one, they're begging for you to jump up and be a wide receiver one right now. Like, they are absolutely asking for somebody to take that mantle. And running back wise, I feel good. I think they're fine running back wise as far as Squirrel and Richard Reese for right now. We'll see how Reese does with an Iowa State defense, but I think they've got some explosion in the backfield.
I think we don't get the chance to talk to coordinators. We don't get the chance to talk to position coaches, and we don't get a chance to talk to many players, although they do allow us to get 2 or 3 players on Tuesday. Normally that starts before we're just ending the show. But I'd like to know, against Brigham Young, I think they wanted to roll out Shapen. I think they wanted to maybe get him outside the pocket, and Brigham Young didn't let that happen. And so and Travis and Sam and those guys can break that down better than I can. But I thought early on they tried to do that, and the only reason he was going outside the pocket is because he'd been flushed from the pocket in that game against Brigham Young.